Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me here today. We are here today to talk a little bit about our IACT project in partnership with a number of major universities here in Illinois that we think is really important. And just to sort of start off the day, I wanted to talk a little bit about why it's important to us at IDOT to be invested in the future of transportation. Connected and automated transportation technology is developing at a rapid pace and really has the potential to greatly impact our communities, the way we get to the places we need to go, our quality of life, and I think ultimately, most importantly for us at this moment in time, is safety. The ability for us to take these technologies beyond just sort of conceptual ideas, though, is really going to require some partnership and practice and work on the part of the department here. And really will require some broad-based support in research and engineering and planning, testing, and validation of what it is that we're looking to accomplish here. So we really truly believe that Illinois, through our world-renowned university partners, has the support, the expertise, and the personnel necessary to advance these technologies. And we believe that the proposed IACT testing facility can play a key role in helping us figure this out. So we see some great promise in connected and automated transportation technologies. And like I mentioned, first and foremost, this is really about safety for us. Our crash and fatality numbers have risen steadily over the past few decades. And much of that has to do with distracted driving. It's not a problem that we can necessarily engineer our way out of. So how can we leverage our technology and emerging technologies to really make our roadways safer and have a lasting impact on communities and also on people who have lost loved ones? It's imperative that we really explore every avenue to help reduce deaths on the roadway, and so as we move forward, that's a critical component of this project for us, but I think it's not the only thing. So like I mentioned, really these new technologies provide independence to people across the state, people who are mobility impaired, offering them an opportunity to get to the same types of places that those of us who are able-bodied to get to. Making sure that our senior citizens have the ability to get to the places that they need to go in a timely manner, making sure that they aren't cut off from the rest of the world. Also thinking about children. As a mother with 2 kids, oftentimes I have challenges getting my kids to school and getting to the places that I need to be on time. How can these technologies help us transform our economy and make communities not only more livable, but more economically competitive as well? I think the other thing too is reducing commute times, freeing up additional time for families to pursue more rewarding and productive activities, like spending time with their kids. And then I think one of the other great pillars of this technology is thinking about the environmental benefits that it could have for us here. So as we look to the future, how can electrification of our vehicle technologies really impact our sustainability, our quality of life, the environment as well? So in order to achieve these benefits, we really know that we need to do some more testing to advance the technology and understand what it is that IDOT's role is in this space moving forward. So that's really why we believe the Smart Transportation Infrastructure Initiative, STI², and the proposed IACT facility can be an essential component of advancing our state's interest in the industry and helping bring these life-changing technologies to fruition here in Illinois. So we're excited to continue our longstanding partnership with the universities that are here today and really look forward to the discussion and hearing from you, because without understanding what the interest is out there and the fundamental agencies that are interested in working in this space here, if we don't want to start a project blindly here. So we appreciate your support in being here today, and I will be here and available to answer questions as well. But with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Ahmad Al-Qadi.
Okay. Thanks, Erin, for this introduction. And I thought the best way to describe what we wanted to do is to first talk about the needs, why we need something like this in the state of Illinois and actually at the United States level. So to address this, there's a few items I will go through today. First, I will talk about the status of the transportation infrastructure in the United States and the data that we have available, the critical issue for the national transportation development, and talk about the smart transportation infrastructure, and then talk about the Illinois autonomous and connected tracks. So if you look at the United States infrastructure, it is the largest infrastructure in the world until recently. I think the number of miles in China is a little larger than what we have in the United States. But we have more than 4 million miles of roads. If we look into the railroads, we have more than 138,000. We have 225 miles of waterways. But that's the most important thing for us, is the contribution to the economy. If we look at the GNP in the United States, we see that always there is a trend and a correlations between the investment in the transportation and the increase in the transportation and the GNP. And that's not a surprise for us, because the transportation system is contributing around 9% to the GNP in the United States. And mostly it's coming from airplanes and trucks when it comes to the contribution to the GNP. But if we look into the 2017 ASCE cards that they published every few years, we can see that we do have some issues here. Mostly is most of our infrastructure, it reached a point that it's in a poor condition, or at best it's in mediocre conditions. And this is applied to most of the transportation infrastructure systems. So this in average got a D+, which is really indicating that we have a problem with our transportation infrastructure. This represents a loss to the families around $3,400 every year, or maybe $9 a day. And the investment needed to fix this problem is $2 trillion, or maybe $206 billion every year. Now, if we do not do this, there is a cost for this. This cost is $3.9 trillion loss in the GDP, and the losses in business sales is at $7 trillion, and there is a decrease in the employment of more than 2.5 million. Now in Illinois, I should say that we are in a little better than the average in the United States. So we got C-. So it's a little better, but we're still in trouble here. Illinois is serving more than 42 million passengers in the airplanes. We have 11 commercial airplanes in the state. Our bridges are considered the third in the United States, and they are in a better shape actually than other bridges around the country, but we have 16% of that are considered deficient. Now, the inland waterway is responsible for moving 116 million tons, and that's valued at 23 billion. There is 42% of our roads are considered in mediocre conditions, and there is significant increase in the vehicle mile travels. It's almost 1% per year. And of course, we do have the second largest nationwide railroad in Illinois. So if you look at this, we are the hub for the transportation system in a way, and there is a responsibility that it comes with that. So the transportation also has another impact in the United States in general. One, we are the second when it comes to the use of the energy after the electricity, and accordingly, that will be responsible for the emission that is produced. So we also the second as to the emission that is produced and the greenhouse gases. So the total emission that comes from the transportation system is 1.8 billion. Now, 90% of that is coming from petroleum products. This has a very high impact on the global warming and accordingly the increase of the temperature. We know that based on the Paris Agreement, we need to decrease the temperature to just keep it 2 degrees above what it was before the industrial era. So we have a big challenge, including the state of Illinois here. So the critical issues that we are facing right now is congestion, and I will talk about this here in a minute. The human and intellectual capital, there is inadequate investment in the innovation. The energy and environment and climate change, there is extraordinary challenges that we are facing right now. Safety, I think Erin, she talked about the safety a few minutes ago, and it's unfortunate that we're doing a little worse than what we used to do a couple of years ago in the state of Illinois, and that's because of, I guess, the distraction that we have for the drivers. The finance and inequity, and the inadequate investment in this area and between the different social classes. There's also a need for the preparation for emergencies. If we get the hurricanes and so on, we need to be very well prepared as a transportation system. We need to change the way that we are dealing with the transportation issues. It's kind of a little different than what we used to do in the last century. And again, I will talk or mention that infrastructure is also a major problem when it comes to this. Now, if we look at the congested area in the United States, you'll see here the cities around the country. Chicago is rated as number 3. Actually, we have 3 of the most, or the 8 most congested areas in the United States are in Chicago area. And that's cost nationally around $160 billion per year. In Illinois, the cost is around like $6 to $7 billion per year. In addition, that's caused significant travel time or extra travel time for the travelers. Now, let's go back and look into Chicago. So these are some pictures that I would like to share with you. These pictures are taken over time. So congestion is not something new for Chicago. It has been there for more than even 100 years ago. So you can see how it looks in 1880. You can see how it looks in 1990, even after the introduction of the trams too. You still have some congestion. Again, the traffic jam, this is downtown Chicago area also. This is in the 1920s and 40s, and you can see we have still the same kind of condition currently. So the last picture here, it shows that we're still having this problem. Don't expect that this is gonna be getting better with time. This is a little bit statistics in 2045. The population will increase by 20%. Accordingly, there will be significant increase in the number of travelers. So if you look at the people who are going to be using airplanes, Chicago will be the 3rd at increase of 68% by 2045. So in general, the increase is going to be mostly in the air, but second, it's going to be in the freight and trucking. Now, the weight of the freight going to be increased by 40%, but we till now not considering seriously the e-commerce. A lot of the people now, they start ordering their stuff through the internet, and that's going to require also more or an increase in the freight. More people are moving to the suburb, and you can see here that the increase is 106. In the urban area, it's 107, so there's going to be a significant increase there, and there will be a reduction in the rural area. What does that mean for the travelers? There's going to be an increase in the vehicle miles traveled, and the congestion is going to be increased. So what we have here is a case where you have more demand and you're going to have less capacity. With the rehabilitation and reconstructions that we are doing right now, and less roads that we are building, brand new roads and bridges, I think we're going to be having more problem with the congestions than we are currently having. So that will be taking us to repositioning ourselves as the state of Illinois and try to be a leader, giving all the talents that we exist here in the state. We're trying to be at the forefront on the autonomous and connected vehicle, in the smart material, on the self-healing, that it doesn't need the crew to be in the field fixing the roads day and night. We need to make sure that we will have connections between the vehicles and the infrastructure. So the wireless connections, it's going to be allowing us to have a better control of the automated vehicle and the platooning, as well as the infrastructure. Platooning is a serious problem that's going to happen. I know that the trucking industry are introducing now the autonomous trucks. We did a little study at the University of Illinois, and we showed that if we're going to be having platooning as is right now, and 76% of our roads are platoonable, if they are going to be of the interstate, of course, if they will be driving at for 15 minutes or more. And the reason why is this going to be the case, because that will save between 6 to 7% of the fuel for the trucks. So definitely this is very attractive. But on the other hand, that's going to put a lot of stress on our roads. In a study we did, we showed that the damage to the roads can be as high as 5 times. So that's going to be a serious problem when we have the platooning. So as we are introducing the platooning, we need to make sure that we are prepared for it. So if we go with the connected and autonomous vehicle, that will allow us to have higher speed, but safe, more control over the vehicles. If they're going to be platooning damaging to the vehicles, we can control the vehicle and reduce the wonder. So we can reduce the damage that it could happen. Actually, in the study, we could show that even we can improve the service life. So it's all how we're going to be connected. So we will have a safer transportation with less crashes, and we're going to have less congestions because now vehicles going to be having a better flow. But this could not be done without talking with all the different modes of the transportation. Actually, I was last week in DC just discussing what's going to happen to our infrastructure as we're increasing the weight just by a few kips for the trucks. And we cannot look at this separate from looking into how much shifting we're going to do between the different transportation modes. What is the platooning going to be doing? What is the connected vehicle going to be affecting this? So all this is going to be looked at as the Congress is looking into the increase of the weight on our vehicle. So that's where the idea of the Smart Transportation Infrastructure Initiative is envisioning to improve the safety, mobility, security, and connectivity, and reduce the energy consumptions and emissions for the next paradigm of transportation systems, including road, rail, air, water, and the intermodal. So our research and policy is to develop development of research and policy in support of safe and automated mobility of people and goods. And in order to do that, we need to look into fulfill the state, national, and global connectivity needs. We cannot do it as a separate. So in order to do that, we must have a partnership. This partnership is between the academia, the government, and the industry. That's why we invited you here. And we are trying to combine the talents of the people that we have at the universities and the innovation that we have at the industry, while at the same time working with the government to make sure that we are developing the right policy and regulations. Actually, one of the things that attracted my attention, got me so excited about this thing is last December, we invited people who are from the engineering, who are interested in the transportation and working with the transportation. And we got more than 170 interested, 120 of them in the engineering at the University of Illinois only, who are working on transportation-related areas, and they are definitely some of the top talents that we should be trying to tap on that. This is the case at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, but this is the same at Northwestern and UIC, and each one of these schools are bringing something different to the table. So what we are trying to do is to try to identify the challenges that are ahead of us, and that's part of what we are asking you today to do, and develop accordingly a roadmap, how we're going to be moving forward, and envision future connectivity needs and identify the challenges for that. And then collective research and policy agenda for the new concepts from the system architecture to technology development, and envisioning future pathways for deployment, recognizing the market developments. And then we need to do that. In order to do that, we need to develop the right infrastructure. The right infrastructure is not just the track. We're talking about the sensing and control system at the various spatial and temporal scales, the security, and that's a big issue, and the fault tolerance, verification, and validation, and so on. So to do that, the idea of the Act or the Illinois Automated and Connected Track and the Connected Village came about. So there is 4 steps for this. One is to have a closed test track that will allow us to test everything under complete control condition. What I mean by control conditions, from the security point of view, safety point of view, and so on. When this is moving to a point that we're feeling comfortable, we're moving this into a Village of Rantoul, which has a grid system, and they graciously agreed to work with us to use the Village of Rantoul for testing. which allow us also to get into the interstate highway at one point during the testing. And so there is an interstate corridor next to it. And while we are doing this, we wanted to get into building a small, what I would say, testing facility for vehicles. But the focus for the track will be the freight. So this is here the steps that we're gonna go with. First is the immediate opening of a parking lot that we have been doing some testing already in it for drones and automated vehicles. Then construction of 1.9 miles of smart track, and I will talk about this here in a little bit, and that will allow us to consider other things such as intersection paths, sideways, and sidewalks, and so on. Then use the city of, or the village of Rantoul for control testing, but live control testing. And after that, you can deploy this to town like Chicago. So before we get into place like Chicago to do the testing, we need to go through the steps. And what this consortium is trying to do is to develop the path forward to do this. So to give you an idea where this is gonna be, this is where the old Air Force Chinook base used to be. And we work with the village of Rantoul. The village of Rantoul provided us with 257 acre. This 257 acre will give us all this land here to allow to build our track. So the track will go as this. So this is the track, it will be 2 lanes. This is the conceptual. 2 lanes, each lane with a regular lane width of 12 feet and 2 shoulders of 10 feet each. And this is here the topographic map for the area. And you can see here the straight line is 167 3 foot from both sides, and then you have the spiral or the elliptical shape, and altogether will give us the 1.92 mile. But most importantly, with the right slope that we have, or the super elevation of this area here, we'll be able to drive at 60 miles an hour, so that will allow us to test at the highway speed for the trucks. In addition to that, we will be having the connected village inside that will allow us to test the vehicles and the technologies available for the innovation and development in this area, such as the instrumented physical infrastructure, communication capability, instrumentation and control, cyber physical infrastructure and databases, from driving simulation, pedestrian behavior modeling, human machine interaction, verification, validation, and wireless network. And then the platform for system control, operation, and planning. And finally here, just to show you some of the ideas or the conceptual ideas that will allow us to test under control conditions, from bus lanes and stops, to roundabout, to underpass, to bridges, to new materials that it's going to be built there, to signalized intersection, and so on. So with that, I hope that I gave you a very good idea about what is the ICAT, the IAC going to be all about. And I will turn it next to Pete. Pete Nelson, he is the Dean of Engineering at UIC, and we're very glad that he's with here today.
Thank you, Ahmad. Very excited to be a part of this, and also really appreciate Dr. Al-Qadi's leadership on behalf of the universities and the Illinois Center for Transportation. I was thinking about this project. I've actually been traveling over the last 3 weeks, and probably many people don't know this, but IDOT and Illinois and Chicago area have actually very rich history in the area of intelligent transportation systems. One of the 2 major, actually 2 founding demonstration projects. One was in Chicago area, sponsored by Federal Highway Administration, managed by IDOT, including university partners, Northwestern's Transportation Center, and UIC's civil and transportation engineers. And at the time, in 1990, they decided they might need a little bit of computer science for this So as a young computer science professor, I was brought into it and excited to be a part of that. But IDOT has really played a leading role in the United States, including that project, which was in the area of dynamic route guidance. All of the in-vehicle nav systems you see now are really successors to the systems that were being developed then. We also had Motorola involved. And later with IDOT, our AI lab at UIC put up the first worldwide real-time congestion traffic map. So we're very excited, and we have, by the way, every major car company, in addition to Motorola, involved in many other companies. So we can see there's a lot of great things can happen when the universities work with IDOT and private industry and other government agencies as well. So what I was going to do is just give you a brief idea of some of the areas. It's not exhaustive, but some of the areas that some of our faculty will be interested in, and we could just include these as the meeting materials. And unfortunately, I've been traveling, so I didn't have time to do a lot of pretty formatting like Ahmad has done with his beautiful slides. But so I'm just going through a list of areas here. This is, start with our Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. And I won't go through the details, but you'll have these in your handouts. They're interested in multi-sensor object recognition. These are signal processing faculty members, and I think there's lots of applications in this area, including energy efficient convergent net solutions without expensive processors. Another area that's done by one of our electrical engineering professors, Milos Zefran, as well as two of our computer science professors, Jinhua Zhang and Prasad Sisla, is basically safety systems controlled by deep learning processes. We think there's critical applications for that. These guys are also working on real-time monitoring as well. And they're thinking of monitoring as an alternative to formal verification. In software systems, we can prove, safety and verification, but it's very, very computationally intensive. And we have a very strong group in that area, but they're looking at real-time monitoring as an alternative to formal verification. These are a few of our faculty members from our civil engineering department, actually civil and materials engineering. Koros Mohammedian is doing work in behavior adoption and implications for tribal behavior. Bo Zhu is modeling manufactured traveling infrastructure in a mixed autonomous and human driving environment. And Jane Lin in civil engineering with Ori Wolfson in computer science, as well as collaborating with Michael Wang at Argonne National Labs, are working on microsimulations of autonomous vehicles and environmental impact. And actually this slide shows the percent change in emissions versus autonomous vehicle penetration. And you can see, huge gains in emission reductions as we get higher penetrations of in-vehicle or autonomous vehicle systems. And we also have an urban transportation center. It's more on the soft science side, and they're interested in various policy aspects of autonomous vehicle research. But that's just a quick whirlwind of some of the things we're interested in. We'd love to be involved with you on any of these project areas and other areas as well. And we're doing a lot of new hiring as well. This year we hired over 20 faculty in engineering areas, that many of them which touch on this as well. So anyway, we're excited to be involved, and I thank Ahmad for his leadership and Aaron and IDOT for putting this together. We think it can yield some huge benefits. So thank you.
All right. Thanks. Frank Jensen, he's the Director of Research at Northwestern Transportation Center.
So, my name is Brett Johnson. I'm the Associate Director of the Northwestern University Transportation Center. And since Professor Al-Qadi has done such a great job kind of laying out the vision for these programs, and for Professor Nelson for giving some insight to what's going on at UIC, I just wanted to take the opportunity to let you know We don't have a full screen here. Can you get that up there? I just wanted to tell everybody a little bit about the Transportation Center at Northwestern. I'm not, just in case many of you are not familiar with it. So, just at a high level, this is our vision, what we aim to be. We aim to be a preeminent think tank in laboratory for cutting edge research that matters. We don't expect to be the only one, but we expect to be one of those premier centers. We try to provide a premier educational program in transportation systems, which I think we do. And I think that's just one theme I want to convey to everyone when you think about Northwestern University and transportation. We're more of a systems engineering school in that respect. We're a essential partner for collaborative research, and we try to advance the state of practice and industry applications through application-driven research and fundamental advances. We do both, like most academic institutions. I'm not going to go through all this, but we do a lot of things at the center. We are not an academic department. We are a research center. We're the hub on campus for research. Faculty members all have an affiliation with their own department. But we try to be the hub for research. We try to be the hub for graduate students in all disciplines doing work in transportation. In fact, we hold almost a weekly seminar series for them. The center, again, is not an academic program, but we help manage a minor program in transportation and logistics, so we bring together undergrads that way. We collaborate with industry extensively. I'll mention that in a little bit in the future. We host education or executive education programs primarily for the freight and logistics industry. And we try to be a forum for dissemination and outreach of all things transportation at Northwestern, but for the overall community. We have about 60 faculty members from all over campus that choose to be affiliates with the center from their academic, in addition to being affiliated with their academic departments. When I think about the autonomous vehicle initiative, I think some of the things to think about where we really play a role and are complementary to the other two schools are we have deep expertise in network modeling and design, optimization, predictive systems, integration with civil infrastructure, though we, I think, rely more on the University of Illinois for the infrastructure side of things. Do a lot of work in traffic flow, urban networks, as well as international networks. But this is kind of the general sense of what our faculty do. Looking ahead, some of our key areas of strategic focus are improving the user experience, smart cities, driverless vehicles, and connected systems, which is right on theme with where we are today. We do a lot of work in freight and logistics and economic competitiveness, focused on data-driven applications and analytics and transportation, energy and sustainability, and mixed traffic flow. And many of those focus areas integrate well with this initiative. We have been doing a lot of work on connected and autonomous research. Recently, we have 2 ongoing programs with the Federal Highway Administration, launching other programs internationally, and then this new one here with the state of Illinois and IDOT and the affiliated schools. I could go on and give more information, but we can share that at a later time if anyone's interested. He's not here. This is who Ahmad mentioned at the beginning. Hani Mamasani is the director of our center. He's a chaired professor in transportation at Northwestern and also the director of the center. He sends his regrets. He's traveling and I think out of the country. Just want to point out that engaging with industry, I like to tell people, is part of the DNA of the Transportation Center. Center came together in the mid-50s because industry, notably these companies here on the bottom, came to the university leadership and thought there was an opportunity to create a research center that was creating new talent that they could hire, but also provide a hub for them to learn. And flash forward 60 plus years, we're still doing this today, and we still maintain these and have grown our connection to industry through what we call our Business Advisory Council. These next 2 slides just show you a number of the companies that choose to affiliate with us at Northwestern. Next slide. hot off the presses, hopefully this week, we have a new annual report that's covering 2016 and 2017. I don't have any to share today, but there is a link down here that'll be shared in what the slides are shared. If you'd like to learn more about what the Transportation Center has been up to and what our vision is for the future, you can find it in this document here. And my contact information is also here that can be shared if you have any questions about our program. But again, we're happy to be here and we're happy to be one of the partners on this. I know Connie's been working pretty extensively with IDOT, Ahmad, and Pete on this initiative, and again, he wishes he could be here today. Thank you.
All right. I think now we wanted to open it for questions. Maybe the best way is to go back to the slide where we are talking about the facility and take it from there maybe. Let's see. All right, let's start questions or comments or suggestions. Go ahead.
No, well, I was just gonna say, before we get into questions, maybe I was just, wanted to highlight that, initiatives like this really take vision and leadership in order to accomplish and pull off. We know that there are a number of test facilities throughout the United States right now in a number of states, and we've been talking with our partner DOT agencies across the country to sort of understand what they've been studying and, where their expertise is. But we really are a hub of freight and logistics transportation here in Illinois, and we want to play to our strengths and our competitive advantage here. So, through this process, it's learning about what is going to make sense for us, to provide value to not only the businesses here in Illinois, but the people who live here in the state, who work in the state, and also, what, should we be doing as a state DOT and research institutions to better leverage, some of these other ideas that are out here. So, with that, groundwork there, I think maybe if there are questions, we're happy to talk with you.
Charlie Blake with Solace. Yeah, this is just probably a housekeeping question more than anything, but are the slides from today's presentation going to be made available?
Yeah, I can send them to you.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have the list of everybody's?
Yes.
Yes. You're okay.
Yeah, I'll send you a PDF.
Okay. Questions?
Are there any highway exits being accounted for in the test track?
I'm sorry, we can't hear it.
Are there any highway exits being accounted for in the test track? That's the kind of point of where a lot of accidents happen and where platooning, very kind of edge case scenarios can appear. So I just wanted to ask that question of what the plans are for kind of testing that component.
I think the answer is yes, that could be, and I'm glad that you're bringing this up because in the first version of this, we did discuss the idea that we to have an exit as part of the plan, but this is a conceptual one, and I can tell you this was done by students, it's not by a company. So when we get the professional one done, would like to get some input like yours, absolutely. Yeah.
Michael Weiser from Commuter Cars. Wondering whether you've considered bike travel between lanes on your 2-mile outer, both motorcycles and pedaled cycles as impediments to safety and possibilities for testing.
Well, I definitely think that those are things that we are discussing. The point of us putting out this RFI, I think, is to begin to have discussions as to what different industries are interested in learning more about, what we should be thinking more about as we develop this. So like Ahmad said, at this point in time, it's very conceptual, but the idea of what to build into this test track and facility, I think, will largely come from the one-on-one conversations that we would like to have from folks and those interactions between the RFI proposals and us.
And actually, the request for information that you received is that we would like you to fill the information and this conceptual thing and the information about what we wanted to include That was developed based on a meeting like this, but that's including only researchers and academics. So that's why we would like to get the input from the industry in order to accommodate everybody's needs. Other?
Yeah, I have a suggestion about this track is a 2-lane track, right?
Yes.
Would
So
it be-
far.
Okay, would it be, I was thinking about this, just adding another scenario, if the inner lane would be a 8 or infinite sign track, where diagonally you also have, longer track, but also you have a bridge at the intersection to be able to test when you go up and down for visual, testing visual systems and going underneath the bridge. I think that would be a good thing to have.
Actually, in the proposals that we wrote, we were saying that we will definitely including underpass as well as bridges. The question is, we need an input from you is what kind of bridges. Even we discussed with some of our faculty about the health monitoring of the bridges and instrumenting these bridges. But I think right now there's so many different technologies and bridges, and would like to hear also from the industry, what can we include in that? Yeah, absolutely.
So can you give us at least a high-level idea of the timeline you have in mind for actually building up the physical infrastructure, roads, the village, as well as the ICT infrastructure?
She's pointing at me, okay? So, no, the whole idea now is to bring, this is a vision, and we need to make sure that this is something that it's needed in the state of Illinois. We wanted to distinguish ourselves from other existing tracks or existing facilities. Example, we at Illinois, we are kind of partner with the one at University of Michigan. University of Michigan is focusing on vehicles. So we want something to complement that while at the same time not competing. So that's why we choose for ourselves that although we will be looking into the different modes of transportation, but we will be focusing more on the freight because that makes more sense for us in the state of Illinois. So there is few steps that we need to do. The first is the conceptual idea is to get this vision, and we got some interesting feedback from the University of Illinois, UIC, and Northwestern. We put the academic team together, then we went and we present the idea to IDOT. IDOT also got excited, but also IDOT, they would like to have the input from the industry and what the public needs. So now we are in that process. Am I accurate? Mm-hmm. So we are now in collecting data and make sure if this is what the public needs, what the industry needs here in the state of Illinois, to fine tune it to make sure that we can put it in a way that it will serve all the different interests. Like for example, when I start talking to IDOT's interest was completely different than, for example, the academia. In academia, we wanted to develop research and so on. IDOT is more interested in policy, regulations. These things are very, very important for them. That doesn't mean that the other thing is less important. Am I accurate, Karen?
Yeah, I think we definitely started this conversation thinking about the policy implications of automated and connected vehicles on our roadways and what we should and should not be permitting or thinking about in the future. But I think as we think about sort of a test facility, we spend quite a bit of money on research and pavement research and ride quality research. So as we think about the future of the programs and our investment in that, I think we should be thinking about, how it could potentially impact this. And I think as we look for responses from the RFP too, we put in some questions about the business model and the business case for this, because I think essentially, we believe that investing in this is substantial and a significant amount of money to build this type of infrastructure to be able to test on. So are there opportunities for public-private partnerships for us to move forward where it would make sense for companies that are interested in partnering and testing to help partner on the investment side as well? So that's not really a timeline answer for you, but that's a lot of background information. I realize we didn't answer your question specifically, but that's where we are.
We are getting there. I guess we are going in the right track.
Well, maybe that's part of when we respond to the RFI, we can give some ideas
Right.
on what.
Absolutely.
That would be welcome.
Question.
Corey with Hostler. I would also bring up having a public safety aspect, so not necessarily freight, but large vehicles like ladder trucks for fire, large police, EMS, even like school buses, utility trucks. We've done some testing up in Michigan at M City. We have to like rent those vehicles to bring them there. And it really isn't a good track to actually test a lot of that autonomous functionality with these anomaly vehicles that aren't such an anomaly every day. So I think that, you know, having at least some of the vehicles and some of the connections to be able to test some of that functionality would be not only a differentiator, but a big need, especially when it comes down to policy, because with first responders and first response, a lot of that is highly regulated.
Yeah, I think this is a good point. Actually, when we started this, the whole idea of the track, that's supposed to be just in this area, so we replaced it just this area. But then we found that we will not be able to run tests at more than 35 miles an hour, and then that's going to be a problem for us. That's why we expanded this area, and the village of Rantoul graciously provided us with all this land to do the testing. So at least I think, I'm not aware of any loop test that will provide you with this kind of speed.
Yeah, there's only 1,000 feet. You know, you can't really get that far with 1,000 feet.
Yeah, I was involved in the design and instrumentation of a smart road in Virginia. And you can go up to 50 miles an hour, but at the end you need to stop and go around. So here, as you noticed, the whole trip will take us, where is Isaac? How long is it going to take us time-wise?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, so it will take us 2 minutes to do this. So you will be able to run both specific tests as well as continuous testing. So that's one of the advantages. One of the earlier ones that we had, there was one in Nevada actually. It's stopped now, but there is no instrumentation or smart way for autonomous vehicle. That's what we are trying to do. And we are encouraging using different materials. I mean, the smart materials, self-healing, this is all going to be part of the study, in addition to the security and control, that's where our computer scientists will be involved in. There was a question here.
Yes, so Ellen Partridge with Environmental Law and Policy Center. So the kind of last mile of freight, is that anything you're going to look at in this phase of it, or is that that later on when you look at what happens in urban areas? Because that seems, you know, how freight gets transferred, how it gets used on city streets seems a really important issue.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to address this. This is one of the research areas. Okay. This is one of the research areas actually that was proposed when we got the information from our faculty. So the last mile is definitely one of the areas that we're going to be testing here. Actually, one of the faculty who's involved in she is leading a theme on this, and she's working with Amazon actually trying to get into this. So she is focused on the control and the drones. So is that something that we will be researching here? The answer is yes. But of course, don't ask me about details because that's off my field.
Are you guys partnering with any of the telecoms for like 5G connectivity on the track?
Yeah, I think that's definitely is some of the feedback we're looking for here. So it's not just the hard infrastructure, it's the technology that would be necessary.
That would be great. And I know a lot of them are looking for to open up other test grounds. So having availability to actually test the 5G connection on that track, I think would help a lot of players, not just in industry, but.
So kind of follow up on that 5G question. Will there be provisions in the test track to test electromagnetic compatibility in general? For example, what happens if the ADAS systems are jammed deliberately or not in a given area?
The answer is yes. We have a list of all the research that it is what I would call it the wish list from the academic point of view. So what we are trying to do is to get the wish list also from the industry and the IDOT and put them together so we will be able to build an infrastructure to accommodate all these needs. So now when we're talking about this, we're talking about what are the needed, what is needed to build an infrastructure that it will accommodate future research in this field or the other fields. So that's where we are right now, is to try to put the infrastructure to accommodate these needs.
Yeah, I think through this RFI process, we really are trying to tease out sort of what is the, you know, it can't be just if you build it, they will come. What's the reality of the needs for, you know, both public and private sector? In a new test facility, things that we might not see at other test facilities, you know, what sorts of things might we do differently that you aren't able to do on other sites? Those sorts of things are the discussions that we'd like to have with respondents, or, you know, if you aren't able to come in for a one-on-one discussion with us, at least put those in your proposals so we can consider them as part of this process.
Yes. Another question. I think one of the unique things that I would think about this particular area is that you have a completely controlled system to test anything safely. If it's running a truck, or look into the security or the control system, or even the last mile, all that stuff, you can test everything under control conditions and develop and have the innovation work there. Then after that, when you move it to a town that's a grid system and it's not very busy, you will have now a little more advantage. And then when you bring it to Chicago area and deploy it here, you are definitely sure that you can deploy something that is 100% tested and validated. So that's the concept that I don't think any other facility will have, or that I'm aware of.
Yes, what do the one-on-one discussions entail? I mean, is it a presentation of use cases or vendor capabilities? How long will the one-on-one discussions last? Kind of, if you have just some general ideas around that.
Yeah, you know, typical one-on-ones that I've been involved with have been about 45 minutes or so of discussion where we've had some sort of predefined questions, but it's those questions are based on sort of an overview analysis of all of the proposals that we've received. So we would go through those. We'd synthesize the information and sort of identify areas of further question where we need to tease out a little bit more detail, or to see if there's consistency or inconsistencies where we're hearing, you know, this is very valuable. How valuable is it to this type of industry? So we would develop that question set based on the proposals that we'd received, and then it would just sort of be an open format discussion. And, you know, given the way that our state works, we've got, you know, pretty strict restrictions on who we can have conversations with and how detailed those conversations can be before we go to procurement. And so through the open RFI process, we can essentially have more open conversations, right? I'm looking at my chief procurement officer here. Have a little bit more open conversations and not prohibit or preclude anybody from entering into contracts with us. So that's sort of the goal of having an RFI on this.
So, do you want to comment on that, Sam? Sam is a social person, so that's why we're doing this, so he likes to meet people. So.
You know, the way I envision the one-on-one discussion is if you submitted a proposal and you'd like to ask more questions and follow up, we'll have an opportunity to do that in a confidential setting. If you have any other ideas you want to present, that would be great at that time. We're not looking at that point for quote-unquote a proposal that would be considered procurement at that point. So it's just a further development of the concepts and ideas that were proposed.
Are you guys looking for industry feedback on any of on the site itself, or is it all within the confines of being in Rantoul? In terms of picking the site location, I know you said proposed facility is in Rantoul, but do you want industry feedback on X, Y, or Z other location might work as well?
Well, you know, I know we've been focused on Rantoul, but we are open to suggestions or otherwise, you know, added value conversations around some of these things. If there are other ideas, it's not like we don't want to hear them. So.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we choose Rantoul for several reasons, because we have a major lab here in Rantoul that's for the Illinois Center for Transportation, which works closely with IDOT. And given the land that we have, that's one. Working with the village of Rantoul, as I said, which is close by and close to the interstate highway. So if we wanted to have testing at the exit to get to the interstate corridor. So frankly, we thought that this will be an ideal. That's why we went to the village of Rantoul. All right. I'm sorry.
Has there funding been identified for the development of the test track and design and I guess the implementation? And also, who specifically will the one-on-one meetings be with?
I'll start with the last question because that seems easier to me. But the one-on-one conversations would be a combination of IDOT and the university partners together. And in terms of funding, I mentioned we spend quite a substantial amount of federal dollars that are allocated to us on hard research. So part of this equation is us, deciding how we spend our hard research dollars potentially in the future and whether or not the investment, what size of investment we might be interested or able to make. So vague, but.
Right. Yeah, and actually, part of this funding is going to come from maybe the state of Illinois, the universities, academia, and the industry who wants to be part of this. So that's how it's going to be. That's why we're looking for the partnership.
As long as we're making the wish list. So no, I was going to say for the connected infrastructure, for the connected streetlights, especially along with connected traffic signals. For both cellular and DSRC on the track to be available. So it would open up back again to the 5G testing capability would help. But we get a lot of questions on sending some of the data to the connected streetlights, and we really have no place to test that. But I think even the city of Chicago here has now gone and completed their RFP and their work on that. So I think not forgetting the connected streetlight component and how that interfaces with the autonomous use cases is important.
Absolutely. Actually, we did test some streetlights in the town of Rantoul because of our connections with them. Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that. I was saying that we did testing. One of my colleagues, he did test some lights in the village of Rantoul because of the limited traffic in some areas. So that was something. So to answer your question, yes.
Yes,
that would be. There's a question there.
Hey, Cristiano with Audubon. I have one question about the vehicles that will be used in the facility. Is it anticipated that the vehicles will be purchased with the funding received for this grant, or is the idea that we would be involving outside industry partners or private sector fleets with their own vehicles, or would specific vehicles need to be purchased or plan to be purchased essentially for either providing it for multiple companies to test on those vehicles, or that each company that would be testing something to supply their own vehicles, or how, I guess if that was talked about or conceptualized at all.
I think it's both. We will be asking for the industry who would like to be working with us on research on their specific development to provide their own vehicles, so we're expecting this. Some of the researchers or some of the specific problem that's of interest to universities or to IDOT and so on, they are looking into specific things, then in that case we'll be using our own vehicles that we have to own in order to do the testing. Yep. So it depends on the research agenda. Is that, yeah.
Go ask Linda.
I'll give you a microphone.
I can try to be loud.
Yeah, thank you. Whom you envision the main stakeholders of this project? Would it be car companies like OEM? Would it be technology providers like people who develop V2V connectivity or V2X connectivity? Would it be telecom companies? And what is the business model? I mean, do you plan just companies to be the partners, or you more think that companies will just wait that the track is built and then will come for like a renting at the end of the project, just to rent it for a couple of hours or for one day? So how would your preferred business model for that would look like?
Yeah, I have an idea to want to go first. Okay, I think I wanted to emphasize that this will never be a track where it is for rent, because we are a top research school, our first agenda is development and innovation. So we wanted to work with the industry in order for them to have better products and work with them to validate products. So that's the approach that we will be taking. So it will be direct involvement. Now, the industry, as I mentioned earlier, and I can maybe should get Pete and Fred mention about the other schools, but I know when we had a meeting in December for our faculty, you cannot believe the faculty in the engineering who are working in transportation, how many companies they are involved in. So we do have connections with many companies, but the idea is to bring everything under one umbrella, so we are all having one transportation voice and work for, I guess, a very focused development. So I hope that answered your question. So for the companies, yes, the answer, we will be working with different companies, because I might be interested, let's say, in the infrastructure part. I have several of my faculty colleagues at UIC or Northwestern or UIUC who are very much involved in security control. So we have a very, very wide range of expertise that we wanted to put it together, so we'll be able to help IDOT and the industry. You want to add something, Pete, to that?
I mean, I guess on the business model question, though, that is something that we're looking for specific feedback on from industry to what sort of business model is attractive to the private sector. Yeah, that I know is something that we're interested in trying to feedback on.
Yeah, and maybe just a short follow-up question. In terms of these companies who would be interested to participate in the research, do you have like a wish list from them, which kind of solution or which kind of technology they would like to test it? Or this is like one of the first attempts to gather this kind of feedback?
This is the first
Okay.
to get this. And if you receive the request for information, the athletes would like to hear from you what is your wish list.
Mm-hmm. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions or comments or suggestions? Yes.
So I don't mean to make so many comments, but one other thing too, I think to learn from some of the other tracks is a lot of times there's a ton of lead time. So, you know, if there was off hours, you know, so startup companies, early on companies could use some of the facilities, not during like the prime 9 to 5 when the other companies might be renting it. I mean, the comment you just made that it's not going to be rented is almost, you know, encouraging, but I'm, you know, curious to see how that will work out. But for the university, you know, if a company wants to test something, some of the other tracks, some of the hindrances is that, okay, you can test, but we don't have a slot for 8 more months, or we'll call you if somebody cancels. You're kind of like, okay, well, you're kind of forced to do your own testing in other ways. So, you know, just learning from them and being able to keep an open mind on the scheduling for the companies and the projects that'll get tested on it, to like really shorten up that lead time. So the track is available to run a test or a quick test, where it's not, and like you said, you don't envision it being rented, but when someone comes in and says, oh, I'm renting it for a week, like shuts everybody out. So just some feedback as you're planning, how is this gonna run operationally? What is the reality of getting, you know, both big and small companies in here, and not sort of, you know, getting the track blocked up for a year on the first week that it's open. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think from my experience with other tracks before, is when you get a company that they are running some secret testing and they wanted the facility and they will want anybody even who's working at that facility to get into the track for a long period of time. I mean, that's definitely going to be counterproductive to what the vision of this initiative is, because this is all about innovation and working together, but we also need to respect when somebody has a specific test that they wanted to do and it's completely secretive, whatever, but of course that cannot be for a long time. That's what I want to say. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we have, oh, I'm sorry. No. You have the mic.
Jerry Cohen from the Illinois Autonomous Vehicles Association. So I know you very much support this, but I wanted to bring it up for a lot of the folks that are here from industry. Is as we talk about test tracks, we've heard a lot of very specific, you come, you execute your use case. But as we all know, the success of this is the integration of multiple systems and the integration and collaboration of multiple systems. And so as you guys are thinking about how to use this track and how to use this facility, think about it in the context of how we can aggregate multiple users, right, with multiple product solutions that you may not have and somebody else has, but will help facilitate the use of yours as well. Don't just think of it in isolation. And I know you guys are very supportive of it, but I didn't want that to get lost in the mix of this, because that, to me, from what all of the other tracks are doing around the country, that's the one big gap that exists right now. And what all of the major OEMs are saying, and a lot of the major manufacturers of vehicles are saying, it's that integration of those systems is truly going to be the future. And if we can start by leapfrogging towards the future, I think we can provide a test track that provides a real level of differentiation for us here in the state, for the companies that operate in the state, and those companies that are outside the state that want to do that sort of work. So it's more of a comment than a statement, but I wanted to make sure everyone kept that in the back of their minds. And that I know you guys are very willing to facilitate those collaborations as well, as the Autonomous Vehicles Association is. So thank you.
Absolutely. There's a question.
So as far as building out the track goes, I think the overall point is to, at least, like you said, have one umbrella where everybody can kind of work together, but at the same time simulating or recreating the real road scenarios. What is, has it been thought about the approach of actually simulating the real road conditions as they are, like with potholes or cracks, as opposed to laying out a brand new slate of
we have
slate
lots
of
of
road?
places you can test that on. I just, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's just like from a concern of like building and testing out a vehicle in a perfect scenario. How does that translate then? Or what are the measurable or quantifiable points that can be used to say, okay, this system works in this isolated environment that is a very good, has road conditions, but then what can we expect it? How can we expect this system to act when it goes onto kind of less prepared roads, which are for most part throughout the United States? So.
All right, I'll take a shot of this. This is going to be, let's say, This will be like 1.92 miles, and this 1.92 miles will allow us to have many sections on this road. So we can build many sections, and that's part of the input that we will have. Some of the sections actually, they will have some of the new polymers that will allow you to have a self-healing for the cracks. So am I envisioning that we're going to be building some roads that it has some defects in them? I myself support that. We don't know how things are going to look at the end, because that's an area that will allow us to test some of the innovations that has been developed recently to heal the crack on the run. Another thing that I did not go through the details yet until we get everybody's input is when I was involved in the design and instrumentation for the smart road in Virginia. That one we did have 76 snowmakers, so you were able at that time to even simulate the snow at different intensity, the rain, the mist, So there's, I think, we can have so many different ideas, and at the end we will have to prioritize what we can do at the beginning, and then later on maybe we will add. The main thing is we need to be mindful about building this for the future, which means that we need to have the right infrastructure in place that will allow us to do the testing that we envision going to be 10 years from now. I mean, that's an important thing, and that's where we would like to get some input from everybody.
Yes. What about data center considerations? Like for example, is this going to be, are you going to use specifically on-premises, data and systems and applications? Are you going to use some in the cloud, public cloud, private cloud? Is there going to be a redundant data center in another location? What's being considered for that?
I can answer that. That the discussion came with our faculty, and I think we definitely going to be having a way that we will be able to save the data, the way that it's going to be retrieved by people, the way that it's going to be secured, because we're going to have different, as they explained it to me, we will be having different levels of data. And these different levels of data, they're going to be even stored at different levels of security. So I will keep it like that. But is that something we will be looking at? Absolutely. There's some group who's looking into this. Any other question? We have, yeah, please.
Just came to a moment very late. In terms of government involvement, so there is definitely a lot of discussion in the industry and everywhere that government regulations can delay or speed up a lot the development of autonomous driving as a fact of the technology. Which kind of interaction with the government? You mentioned at the beginning you already have some discussion with them. Are they like participate in this project? Will they collect information from this project to create some of the regulations? So I think for the industry it will be also very interesting if this project can like be a connection point with understanding how the regulations are developed and how this test facility can affect these regulations.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're very much interested in being engaged on. We've been trying to kill bad bills that have been out there that preempt sort of the ability for us to do this sort of testing in a large scale environment. So it's something we're particularly mindful of, and I think that as we move into conversations about what would be of interest or feasible, you know, these are difficult conversations where you don't want your legislation to sort of get out in front of it, but you know, also too, we understand and appreciate the need to sort of move forward with the existing infrastructure as well. So I think that's definitely a discussion that we need to consider and continue to have further discussions with industry on. But I would hope that we would be able to evaluate and utilize the information gleaned from this project to help make sure that what we're doing in Illinois is really open and welcoming and, you know, meets a variety of partners' needs.
Any other comments and questions? Yep.
So what I'm hearing here is lots of ideas, and I think one of the things that seems to be very, very critical is a real robust response to the RFI, and I think that's what you ultimately are looking for. So if we can get that, and we can encourage others who maybe couldn't be here to respond, so that you get all of that input, which is, you know, I don't think it'll be an easy task for you to go through, but nonetheless will be good information to have.
So will the responses to the RFI be online?
We typically publish the responses to the RFIs, and that's, so anything that we would receive written would be publicly available. The one-on-one discussions, you know, typically are private discussions, so they would allow you and your companies to sort of elaborate some more specific details as well. We typically don't take notes during those, and you know, you turn over any of the materials that you brought if you bring physical papers. But I think all of that is listed in the proposal itself. You know, the requirements for public information, public good.
Also, in addition to that, the questions and answer session here this afternoon, that would be also, excuse me. The question and answer session that we're having right now, that will be transcribed and pushed out to the intended audience as well as the.
Yeah, we typically post that on the same page where the RFI is posted as well.
Sort of an update to the RFI.
I'm Jerry Huber with the Heritage Research Group. I don't know if it fits here or not, but one of the things that I'd like to put on the table for thought is the vision and the concept that has been floating around for a few years of separating the cars and the trucks. The vision being of reconstructing the interstate to have truck-only lanes and have car lanes and have the trucks to be a larger size. I know in the FAST Act there is mention of critical commerce corridors, which is the terminology that's been adopted for this vision. And I know that FHWA has approved that funding can be spent on such a project, but that to date, I don't know that there's been any projects that have been put forward. The vision that comes out of it is that we would have trucks that'd be 160,000 pounds or some such size, that of course would be in their own dedicated sets of lanes. One of the things that I find very interesting out of that is, you know, in the platooning of vehicles, we're talking about on two vehicles, two trucks that are platooned together, fuel savings in the order of about 6 to 7% average between the two vehicles. A large vehicle carrying 160,000 pounds has more than twice the payload because there is only one tractor unit that's involved, and the fuel savings is in the order of 15 to 20% by doing that. So I don't know how that fits in with the test track, but I certainly think in terms of your comment about focusing on freight, that if there's some way to flesh out or develop that concept and that vision, I think there are great opportunities that are available to the country by allowing us to do that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that comment. I think it's something that we've been thinking about too as we look at our corridors here in Chicagoland region, like I-80, like I-55, where we have heavy freight traffic. You know, I mean, I think the conversation of truck-only lanes has been in the air for some time. I think too, this idea of how you put out a managed lanes network of highways, and whether it's for trucks or whether initially as we're merging into a sort of an automated and semi-autonomous and not autonomous vehicles. I apologize if I'm not sure what correct terminology, but as you begin to sort of see automation take hand, you know, are there ways that we can begin to separate the traffic in ways that make sense? It's something that we're thinking about the DOT, but I think it's a valid comment for us in terms of this as well.
Yeah, just a continuation on that, Aaron, that I would offer is that in 2008, there was a group of 4 states, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and Missouri, that did a study on I-70, looking at what such a facility with separated car and truck lanes might look like, including geometrics that could be used, and specific geometrics to the various cities that the highway would go through, as well as quite a bit of modeling that had been done at that time regarding congestion, average speeds, safety, and also fuel economy. So some of those concepts have already been addressed in that pilot study, which was just, you know, a modeling type study. But I think there's a real need for, you know, verification and fleshing out of those concepts.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. I think the design from the geometric point of view, it will allow us to do the testing. But in order to do that, maybe we need to add it to our research needs as we're developing this, to consider this in the design for the pavements for the heavier load. So I think that would be a good thing to do. Yeah. All right. Let's see, any other questions or comments? Good.
Yeah, I think with that, I'll just say on the behalf of the Illinois Department of Transportation, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to receiving proposals to the RFI and continued discussion on the topic.
Yep, and we do have some coffee, juice, and so on for just to have further interactions and discussion informally. So I wanted to thank Pete and Brett for being with us today, and Sam for all his work in developing the request for information, and thank you all for coming. And please, if you have any other questions, you may send us an email and we'll follow up. So thank you so much, and we'll just interact informally. Thanks.